Hi, this is Alex Kiri from learn.alexkiri.com. In this video, I would like to show you how to create a multi-node local Kubernetes cluster with kind, and also how to specify what Kubernetes version the cluster should use. The instructions in this video are universal to whatever you are running kind. But if you don't have a setup already, I recorded previously a video where I show how to get started with Docker for Linux and Kubernetes in Docker in a WSL2 distribution, namely on Ubuntu 18. So if you want to give that setup a try, you can find a link to that video in the description of this video. And next to that, there is also a link to GitHub gist, which includes all the snippets and links and commands that I'm running in this tutorial. And that's being said, let's get started. So in the previous video, we created a basic Kubernetes and Docker cluster with one node. And I still have that running here, so we should be able to do a get nodes. And there you go. And well, this is the default setup, but many times you want to have a multi-node cluster. I mean, in production, when you run a Kubernetes cluster, you will have for sure multiple nodes running in that cluster. So I will just delete this with kind delete cluster and show you how to create a multi-node one. And basically, in order to create a multi-node Kubernetes cluster with kind, we need to create a configuration file. So you can no longer do that just with the command line. So here we have a configuration for creating a node, a cluster with 3 nodes, 1 control plane node and 2 workers. So let's copy it from here and just write it into a file here. I'll put it into kind config.yaml and I will paste it here and save it. So in order to create a cluster, we just have to run kind create cluster. We can give it a name, and then we can pass the config parameter to point to the configuration file. This takes a path. So, for example, this command will work perfectly if we're in the same folder as the configuration file. But if you're not currently, either change directory or provide correct path to your file. I will not run it yet. I want to show you first how to also specify a different Kubernetes version. By default, you will always use the latest one. We've seen in the previous video at the time of the recording, the latest one was 1.18.2, I think. But there are many cases when maybe we don't want to run the latest version. Maybe some of the deployments we want to do are not compatible with that, or there are different situations when you don't want to run the latest one. So if you want to run a different version, then the first thing to do is let's see what versions are available. And since kind uses Docker images for each node, in order to check that, you just have to go to Docker Hub into the repository for kind. The user that hosts the repository for kind is called kindest. And the image we are looking for is the one called node. And if we look at tags, here we can see all the tags available for this image. So this is the latest one, the 1.18.2 has been updated 2 days ago. And then we have like 11.10, 12.10, 13.10, 14.10. So I think they're pretty much all the versions here. So for example, I would say let's go and use 17.5. So we know that this is the tag for the image that we want. Then we just need to specify it to kind when we create the cluster. So then we can just do that using the parameter called image. So let's create a cluster, a 3-node cluster using the 117.5 image. Let's call it kind cluster and use the config we have created before. So I'll just copy this and run it here. Now this will take a little bit of time, but not a lot. While we wait, we can look at here that there are quite a few versions available, and they're quite often updated. I think some of the oldest ones, they're not being updated here anymore because they're not even supported by Kubernetes. But you can see that even the 15.6 was updated 5 months ago still. 4 months ago, actually. No, and actually 16 days ago. So yeah, they're quite well kept up to date. This is probably going to take a minute or so. I will pause the video and resume once the cluster has been created. All right, the cluster has been just created, and if we can do this get nodes, and you can see there we are running 3 nodes, version 117.5. And one interesting thing I wanted to show you, if I run kubectl version, I only showed this command in a previous video by running it with client, with the client argument or parameter. But if I don't pass that, it will actually show me both the version of the client and the version of the current server. So that is useful to know. Yeah, and that being said, we now have a 3-node cluster that we can start and use for our deployments or Kubernetes experiments. And that was it that I wanted to show you in this video. Hope you found it useful, and thank you for watching.